Hi everybody, Dan Illman here. The holidays are right upon us and DRF is offering the deal of the year. 20% off Formulator and Classic Pass performances, clocker reports, digital paper, DRF picks, and much, much more. The coupon code for our Black Friday sale, BLFRI22. Visit shop.drf.com for details. Sale ends soon, so don't you dare miss it. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, taking a look at race number 8 at Aqueduct on Friday. It is the Aqueduct Turf Sprint Championship. We're going 3/4 of a mile on the outer turf. $150,000 is the purse. Big overflow field for the Aqueduct Turf Sprint. Let's take a peek at these nice turf sprinters. We got 12 in the body of the race. Prime Factor is the also eligible that would compete on grass if there is a scratch. 14 through 16 on the also eligible list. You can go many different ways in here. Dancing Buck has a tough post position on the outside, the number 12. This horse has been in very, very good form. I'm going to try to pull off the Belmont Turf Sprint and Aqueduct Turf Sprint Championships, although the Belmont Turf Sprint came at Aqueduct.
Yeah, exactly. If nothing else, at least it's at the same distance here at Aqueduct. His recent form's really good, and he did just beat several of these horses in his most recent start, Dan. He did it with a very, very soft trip over yielding turf, and now he's got to overcome, the far outside post. I don't really have a big argument against him. He's a slight morning line favorite, but this just feels like a wide open race.
We'll throw up the Timeform US pace projector and really highlights what Mike said. When Dancing Buck won last time out, he was able to get to a very easy lead. Timeform US believes that there were 4 horses in this race potentially faster than him. One of them, Bad Beat Brian, who when he breaks is a very quick horse. Nothing Better has also shown speed, and Gear Jockey has shown renewed speed in his recent races. The good news, if you are a fan of Dancing Buck, is he has shown the ability to sit and finish successfully.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dan. He did take advantage in his most recent start, but he is not a horse who needs the lead to be effective. So I don't think it makes that much of a difference if he can't make the lead in here. He's still a contender either way. I don't know how fast this pace is going to be. The more I looked at the race, the less sure I was that they were going to necessarily go fast early, but I certainly didn't think they were going to be walking.
Voodoo Zip's an interesting contender, breaking from the rail under Arad Ortiz for Christophe Clement, going to be making his 3rd start of the form cycle. He was the favorite in the Highlander at Woodbine over the summer. It was a race where he kind of split horses, got bumped a little bit, and then flattened out badly, went to the sidelines, and you could argue he was one of the horses pace compromised in the Belmont Turf Sprint last time out and might get a better setup here.
Yeah, he certainly ran pretty well last time. He didn't really have much of a chance to win that race, but he did do pretty well to get up for second. I guess the only problem that I had with him, Dan, is he gets bet a lot, and I'm just not sure that he's that good. I mean, he sort of shows up and runs the races that he runs. He's very consistent. I just don't really feel like he's that good. And 6-1 on the morning line, I would want more than that.
For a horse that was claimed for $40,000 3 starts back, Bad Beat Brian, the number 2, is pretty good. Earned a stakes placing in his first off the claim at Ellis Park. Got a nice win at Kentucky Downs, going 6.5 furlongs when able to use his good speed to shake loose. And last time out in the Woodford, he sort of bobbled at the start and then was in a tight pocket entering the turn. Maybe a little bit of a shuffle back, got to the outside, finished up evenly. I still think there are some class concerns, although he has run some fast races and does have good tactical speed.
Yeah, those things are all true. Maybe he just gets a good trip here, and it sort of works to his advantage. He got the 99 last time. I personally, Dan, I don't know how you feel about the Woodford. I know Golden Pale was the winner. I don't like that race. I didn't feel like Golden Pale ran that well in there, and I didn't really like anybody behind him. I know he won 2 back at Kentucky Downs. We talk about that all the time. I don't care about that race, and I hated his 3 starts back at Ellis Park. I thought he had no excuse there.
50-1 on our next entrant, the 3, Nathan Detroit. They tried to cut this horse back to 5.5 at Laurel. Now remember, 5.5 at Laurel plays a little bit longer because of the long stretch in the second wire. I just didn't really think he got the right pace set up in that race. That race was won in gate to wire fashion. I also would have liked to have seen him run on a little bit more despite being very wide into the lane. I just think this horse wants more ground.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I guess you could look at him and say, that was the first time that they cut him back most recently, and maybe he'll be a little sharper this time as they keep him short. But I still don't see the race that he's run that makes him a real contender in here.
The number 4 is Anaconda, coming back from Laurel, where he scored going a mile. He got a brilliant trip and ride from a very promising young jockey, J-Ron Barbosa. Let's watch this race at Laurel. He was very headstrong, was Anaconda, breaking from the far outside post, but Barbosa was able to wrangle him back, got him into the pocket, saved ground until just the right time, got him into the clear, and Anaconda did the rest.
Yeah, his last 3 races are all actually pretty good. And those races all came after he got absolutely dusted by Dancing Buck up at Saratoga sprinting. I guess, Dan, those last 3 starts with more distance attached, that's kind of what concerns me about him. I'm not sure that he really wants to go this short.
Nothing Better was a stakes winner at Monmouth, sprinting 3 starts back, then was stakes placed with a very good trip going a mile in the Red Bank at Monmouth. And last time out at Laurel, they dropped him back to 5.5 furlongs, and he was able to get to a nice, easy lead. Let's watch Nothing Better winning this non-conditioned allowance. He was able to relax up front, and now he has to navigate this very long stretch, and he holds the field at bay. He will be facing a stronger group in here. He will be facing other speeds. But Mike, I kind of agree with you. I'm not sure they're going to be blazing up front, and he could be right there when the real racing begins.
Yeah, I think that really helps this horse, whose recent form, overall, it's pretty good. He wins this race pretty easily, Dan. I mean, I personally thought he had a really soft trip in there, sitting right up on the lead. And then when he took over, he really couldn't get away from them in the stretch, but he was never losing that race. You know what race really makes me want to keep him open to consideration in here is the final start last year at October, going 6 furlongs at Belmont. Voodoo Zip nailed him on the wire in there, but this horse ran the best race that day. He was contesting the pace. He was contesting the pace the entire way, and he was hanging on dead game to the end and just got caught.
A very consistent horse. He's hit the board in his last 8. The next is the number 6, Thin White Duke. Now, we know Thin White Duke's running style. He is a closer. He wants a little bit of pace. He got a great ride from John Velasquez last time out at Aqueduct, winning his second level allowance condition. Let's watch this performance. He was steadied a little bit going into the turn, but Johnny V didn't panic. He kept him in between horses, and he finds a seam. And Thin White Duke really comes with a striking stretch kick.
Another good performance for this horse. He's just been really good since Dave Dawn cut him back in distance at Saratoga. This is another good finish for this horse. He's one of the horses who was badly compromised 2 starts back in that Dancing Buck race, trying to come from way out of it. He just had no chance, and he rebounded nicely last time.
I wonder if you can make an argument that the number 7 Chewing Gum for trainer Bill Mott is a bit dirtied up coming into this race. He won the Hernandez when they sent him out to Southern California. They found the right field. He got a very nice closer's trip that day and just was able to get up over a decent sort in Beer Can Man. But then he's laid up 7 months. He runs at Woodbine going 7 off the bench. I'm willing to give him that race. As you mentioned, the Kentucky Downs races, if a horse doesn't run well there, we're not going to penalize them too much. Last time out, he caught yielding ground in the Belmont Turf Sprint. And for a horse that's usually a closer, they were very aggressive with him early, and I'm not sure that's his style.
Yeah, maybe they took him out of his game last time, although that was the kind of race where you wanted to be forward. And so I didn't really know how much of an excuse to give him, Dan. More than anything else, and listen, he's a pretty big price in this race, I feel like, and he does have races on the go back that would give him a real chance in here. I've just never liked him. I don't think he's that good, and I want to bet other horses.
Scuttlebuzz popped a giant Beyer speed figure when winning the Elusive Quality. Now, that was going 7/8 of a mile in his seasonal debut over the spring. And after that, Rudy Rodriguez sort of threw him to the wolves in the Jaipur and the Forbidden Apple. And in his last 2 starts, they've cut him back. I'm not interested in the dirt race, the Park Stash, but last time out, the Belmont Turf Sprint, he just hasn't been sharp from the gate in his last couple of races. And I wonder if that means he's getting a little sour.
I wonder about that too, mostly for that last race, Dan, just because, and I know, again, it's a race where you didn't really want to be closing, and that's his running style, is to close in his races, but he just didn't do anything in there. Like, he never really picked up with any kind of a run, and it was yielding ground too, so maybe that's an excuse. I don't know. I'll be honest, I really tried to make excuses for this horse and to try to find a way to use him in here, because he has races that would give him a real chance in here. I just wanted to see something out of him last time, and he didn't do anything.
I know you're not a big fan of horses coming out of the Woodford. The 9-gear jockey finished in a dead heat for 4th in that race with Bad Beat Brian, but maybe he's the kind of horse you can take out of that race because it was his first start off of a long layoff, and he was the one that was chasing Golden Pal in the early portion of that race before understandably tiring. I think maybe someone else does the dirty work for him this time. My main problem is I thought this horse was going into the Jaipur with a big chance. I know that was a very live race. I didn't think he ran well at all that day.
Yeah, we're in agreement about his last 2 races, Dan. I didn't like his Jaipur at all. I thought he got a good trip in that race and was terrible in there. You know, did he run well in the context of the Woodford? Yeah, I guess he did. He's another horse that I kind of wanted to like in this race. And the more I went through his form, especially his form this year, I thought he ran some good races last year. His form this year just doesn't do a lot for me.
Up next is the number 10, Yes and Yes. And this horse has plenty of excuses for his last race when he was 3rd in the Belmont Turf Sprint. Again, there wasn't pace, and this horse had to come from far behind after a terrible start. He ran on well to be 3rd, and this is a horse that's hinted at some potential going 3/4 of a mile. I think these races being at Aqueduct really help him. I think 7 at this point might be a little far, and 5.5's a little short.
Yeah, I think that you keyed in on the things that I like about him, Dan. I really feel like the 5.5s up at Saratoga and the race at Colonial Two-Back, I think it's a little too short for him. And he had a big excuse last time when he stumbled at the start. Now he's starting to develop this habit of not getting out of the gate well, and I don't think he can really afford that in this spot. But man, he's got races that would make him a serious contender in here. He can be forward if he breaks the gate this time. And his first 3 starts this year, he ran really well in all of those races.
Up next is the 11, Run Curtis Run. This is a very consistent 3-year-old who's now going to be tackling older horses for the first time. He overcame a rough beginning to win his most recent start right here at Aqueduct. This is the Carl Place for fellow 3-year-olds. He's last with a lot of work to do turning into the stretch, and he rolls by them all. I do think that this is a pretty big step up in class from this race, however.
I agree. He's the only 3-year-old in this field. This is a way tougher spot, but he ran really well in here. It's worth noting, Dan, this is not a horse who had ever closed in a race in his life. And he was last coming into the stretch in here. His rider just allowed him to settle back there and didn't go for the early run. And he powered down the outside. That was a good performance. His races prior to that, I know against 3-year-olds also, but he ran well in all of those races too. And he's another horse, even though he was far back last time, he can be forward in this race. I thought he was pretty interesting.
The final horse in the body of the race is the morning line favorite. That's the 12, Dancing Buck, who just beat 5 of these in the Belmont Turf Sprint over Yield and Going. And this was a race where he was able to get to the lead, and he was able to pretty much walk the dog. He has a 2-length lead at the 3/16 pole. And when you give a sharp horse like this kind of trip over this kind of deep and tiring course, he's going to win. He pops a 103 buyer. I'm not sure he's a 103 buyer horse, but boy, he's a mid-90s sort on his best day, and he's also versatile enough to win on firm going from off the pace.
Yeah, that's true, Dan. He did run a career best last time, but it's not like his prior 3 starts leading up to that weren't all really good performances. He's just in good form right now, and he kept it going last time. But, you know, you do have to consider that as the morning line favorite, he kept it going last time with all the best of it. And it just feels like it almost has to be, it has to play out a little bit differently in this race, especially from post 12. I'm not way against him. We'll see what kind of price he is.
We'll briefly touch upon the one also eligible entered for turf. That's Prime Factor, a horse that has only raced once on the grass, was beaten by Thin White Duke in the Thin White Duke replay that we showed. I thought he ran just fine that day. I still think he has upside. He will get blinkers. He's Junior Alvarado's second call.
Yeah, he's a horse who has turf pedigree, so it wasn't that surprising that he ran the race that he ran last time. It was a good effort.
14 through 16 on the also eligible list. So we'll move to our top selections for the Aqueduct Turf Sprint Championship. If Prime Factor does get into the race, I want to use him at a price, even from this tough outside post position. But I like where you're going with the 10 Yes and Yes, a horse that was compromised by the lack of pace and just a terrible start last time.
Yeah, I think he can get a better trip in this race. He's going to have to. If he does, I think this is a race where he can contend at a price. So I took him. I'll be honest, Dan, I changed my mind 3 or 4 different times, put different horses on top, discarded them, moved somebody else there. I wound up with the 10.
I wound up with Dancing Buck, and again, I'm concerned that this horse is going to be an underlay based on the perfect trip that he had last time out. I just love his consistency, and I think with his speed, he can actually find a good position without losing too much ground going into the turn. Gear Jockey, I've fallen for him so many times. I just think from a class standpoint, he fits with these horses. Whether he can still run anymore, that's a different story. 10, 11, 12, 6 for Mike, 12, 9, 2, 4 for me. 3 stakes at the Big A on Friday. This, the Aqueduct Turf Sprint Championship.